Hi, so I guess April is National Poetry Month. I saw that on Instagram this morning. And I was like, actually, I should make a video about poetry that I like, because I do really love poetry. And I was just thinking about filming this, and I remembered like a few reasons why I think poetry is a part of my life. One, because my dad really loves poetry. So since I'm a kid, we always had collections of poems in the house. He's really a poetry lover, so I definitely inherited that from him and was around it a lot, and he shared a lot with me when I was younger. And also I had an amazing teacher in school. I think it was either like 3rd grade or 5th grade. Like the same teacher I had for 3rd grade and 5th grade. And she had this thing called Poetry Cafe, which was like once a week. There was a section of the classroom that she made to look like a cafe, like a French cafe, and we would even have like berets that we could put on and kind of like dress up and read and write poetry, different forms, when I was in elementary school. So for sure that had like a lasting effect on me. And now that I think about it, like that whole scene just describes like so much of me. So I thought that I would compile a list of some poets and poetry collections that have really spoken to me over the years. And I think poetry is really individual, and I think it's also hard to talk about poetry because it touches people in so many different ways. I find it sometimes even hard to say like this poem is talking about this, or this collection deals with this. Like, I mean, of course there are themes in poems and some poetry collections, but it's hard to, I think it just will hit each person differently, and you will take from it what you take from it, and that's why I love poetry. I feel like it's really up for your personal interpretation of how those words affect you. This will probably be less of a describing poetry video and more just sharing poets that I like, and you can then go and do your own research and read some stuff and see if they maybe touch you also. So one of my favorite poets is Sharon Olds, which I just talked about because Vuong is a student of Sharon Olds. So if you like Vuong, you would probably like Sharon Olds. She's also one of my dad's favorite poets, and we had a poetry collection of hers called Odes in the house when I was like, yeah, just years ago. And this poetry collection, in general, her poetry, I've never read anything like it. And also, I think she's the one poet where she can make me cry instantly. She can make me, she hits my emotional chords very hard. And she's one of the most like raw, confronting. Raw is the best way I could describe it. I feel like you read her words and it's completely stripped bare. It is like the essence of what she's trying to say. It's really hard to describe. It's very raw. So if the content is hard or difficult, it means it's really hard and really difficult. So Odes is a collection where it's kind of like odes to different things. Ode to my sister, ode to broken loyalty, ode to my whiteness, ode to the last 38 trees in New York City visible from this window. So it's different odes. I felt like this has a lot of, she talks a lot about her family and what it means to be a daughter of someone, a mother of someone, a wife, a lover, a friend, a poet. In general, also her poetry has quite, has a lot of sexual content in it. She talks about sex, she talks about love in a really raw way. So just something to take into consideration. I think I enjoy it a lot. Yeah, love, gender, sexual politics, pleasure, the body also. She talks a lot about the body and everything that your body is. So Odes is an amazing, amazing collection. And before that, she published Stag Sleep, which is a really, really heartbreaking collection based on her divorce, or like her husband left her, and then we're left with Stag Sleep, which is the book that is reflecting on, the poems that's reflecting on. And this is one of those poetry books that I cannot read at the wrong time. If I'm in a fragile state and I read this, it will destroy me. Which I think is incredible. Like, that's what I mean by there's not many people that I've read whose words do that to me, like, that I could say is dangerous to read for me at a certain point, because it's just so visceral and raw. And I love David Whyte. David Whyte is a poet. He's also a philosopher. There's an amazing On Being podcast with him. So I will link that below. I've recommended it to everyone, and I think it's one of the only podcasts that I've listened to like 4 times. So his collection of poems called The House of Belonging is really, really beautiful. I thought I would just read you the poem that the title is based on, The House of Belonging by David Whyte. And it's just, yeah, it's talking about home and wherever your home is, and yeah, I'll just read it. I awoke this morning in the gold light, turning this way and that, thinking for a moment it was one day like any other. But the veil had gone from my darkened heart, and I thought it must have been the quiet candlelight that filled my room. It must have been the first easy rhythm with which I breathed myself to sleep. It must have been the prayer I said, speaking to the otherness of the night. And I thought that this is the good day you could meet your love. This is the gray day someone close to you could die. This is the day you realize how easily the thread is broken between this world and the next. And I found myself sitting up in the quiet pathway of light. The tawny, close-grained cedar burning round me like fire, and all the angels of this housely heaven ascending through the first roof of light the sun has made. This is the bright home in which I live. This is where I ask my friends to come. This is where I want to love all the things it has taken me so long to learn to love. This is the temple of my adult aloneness, and I belong to that aloneness as I belong to my life. There is no house like the house of belonging. So I just really love his words. I love hearing him speak also. He has a gorgeous speaking voice. I think in the podcast he reads this poem much better than I just read it, obviously. So you should go read that, or watch that, or listen to that, whatever. My next poet would be Warsan, Shire. If you know, which you probably do, Beyonce's Lemonade. So this is the poet that she collaborated with for Lemonade, and also I think for Black is King. Anyway, her collection is Teaching My Mother How to Give Birth. And I read this a few years ago, and I think I've read it twice. There's also an amazing video of her reading some of her poetry that's gorgeous. I will link that also in the description. Her poetry has a lot to do with parenthood, also the body, sensuality, and also language and migration and immigration. She also talks about sensuality in the lens of Islam, which is also really interesting. I haven't read this collection in a while, so it's hard for me to bring like really specific thoughts, but I always think that her poems are amazing. The Warsan, Shire is for sure another one that I love. I think she has a new collection coming out a year from now, like March 2022. So I'll definitely be looking forward to that. The last recommendation, or second to last, would be Ocean Vuong's poetry collection, Night Sky with Exit Wounds. I read this also a little while ago. I am reading his novel now, On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous, so I think I'm going to reread also this poetry collection. So maybe I'll talk about that in a later video. But yeah, Ocean Vuong is amazing, and similar to why I like Sharon Olds, although they're very different and they have definitely distinct voices. But yeah, his, I don't know, depiction of the Asian immigrant experience in America, and also war, and also trauma that gets passed down through generations, and sexuality and queerness. So all of those things. And the last book I have here is a Billy Collins poetry book called Sailing Alone Around the Room. This is new and selected poems. This is my dad's book, I think, that he gave me at some point. And yeah, I don't have much to say other than if people ask me who my favorite poets are, I always say Billy Collins, even though I couldn't tell you like a favorite poem, for example. I know that he talks a lot about objects in this particular collection, like, I don't know, poems that have to do with, I don't know, a fork and a plate and a reflection of glass or something. But in a really beautiful and lyrical way. So I'm also connected to like that kind of writing. I just thought I would read you something. This is called The Dead. The dead are always looking down on us, they say, while we are putting on our shoes and making a sandwich. They're looking down through the glass-bottom boats of heaven as they row themselves slowly through eternity. They watch the tops of our heads moving below on earth, and when we lie down in a field or on a couch, drugged perhaps by the hum of a warm afternoon, they think we are looking back at them, which makes them lift their oars and fall silent and wait like parents for us to close our eyes. That's beautiful. So those are some poetry recommendations. Let me know if you're a poetry reader. As I said, I think it's really personal, and I think if you're someone who's like, I don't get poetry, it's too abstract for me, I totally understand. I think it's very important to find a specific poet that speaks to you. So for example, if you like nature, descriptions of nature, probably Mary Oliver, for example, would be a poet that you would like. So I think you need to find, if you are interested in poetry, you need to find specific voices that just touch you. And that's by trial and error, I guess. So thanks for watching. Happy National Poetry Month. Maybe I'll try to read some more poetry this month. Yeah, and leave poets and poems that you love below. I would love to know and discover. Thanks for watching. I'll catch ya later. Bye.